So here we are again. That'll work. Let me just make one little few slight clicks. That sounded weird, but we'll go with it. One ringy dingy, two ringy dingies, three ringy dingies. Don't mind me. I say that every time the phone rings. Stop calling. I don't want to get a copyright strike because that'll be bad. But anyway, when I was on another YouTube channel last night, the topic of actually being overly, I'm just going to put it the way that it was said, like having an over saturation of the idea of being love and light and nothing but love and light, that came up. And it got me thinking. It is also very imperative that this actually gets spoken about. Because, believe it or not, the idea of being all... I'm just going to turn that back on. It just looks a little funky. Because the idea of having an overdone amount of love and light, believe it or not, can actually be just as bad, if not possibly potentially more damaging than allowing the true feelings that somebody's feeling out, because it gets repressed. So anyway, I figured I'd just come on and actually speak about this, because it's actually, and it's not even in the spiritual community too. This is actually specifically also involving, like, say, mental health, other people's mental health, other people's well-standing, other people's overall mental, emotional, and psychological health that is being put at risk because of this way of thinking. And it's not, I'm trying to find a nice way to put it. It's not something that is to be really admired, because there's a lot of pitfalls in it, and it's just as bad as actually carrying out the baneful responses and actions. And if not, it can actually cause, like I said, more damage or an equal amount of damage. But I'm going to figure out where to first start, because there's so many ways to start. Like actually finding a kickoff point, but I guess the best way to start is, what do I mean by being pretty much overdoing the idea of love and light? What does it mean? Why am I speaking about having too much positivity, like staying overly positive, being an individual providing some form of support or assurance to somebody else to stay positive and to just look on the bright side, or to just keep going despite the pain, or to not stand up for yourself and defend yourself and quote unquote turn the other cheek? How can those ideals be very hazardous to your well-being and also well-being of others if you do pretty much fling the idea of overdoing the positivity, because it can be very damaging. So, first and foremost, probably the most important, what is toxic positivity? Or essentially, you're pretty much being trying to be on the bright side of everything and trying to support somebody else, or you're trying to tell yourself that I've been through worse. Things can be much worse for me. I've handled worse. This can't be like the worst ever. I'm going to stay positive in this, even though internally I feel pretty horrible, stuff like that. Well, toxic positivity is what you're doing is that you're refusing to acknowledge the reality that's in front of you and the reality that you're feeling, and also the reality of somebody else and what they're going through. In other words, pretty much if you have somebody in front of you breaking down and they're trying to express their frustration, their pain, their hurt, and they're not acting in a way that's going to swing or cause harm to anybody, they're just saying it out loud just to get it off their chest, and they're even asking you just to listen or even just help, and they just start saying all of these things like why this is bad, why this is happening to them, how come this is horrible, why does this individual have to suffer, why do they have to suffer, how come things are like this, how come life is putting them through this, and how come no matter how hard they try for something or desire that they want, it always ends up with them being either hurt, cheated, or an obstacle gets put in the way, and they feel like they want to stop, and they just want to stop putting in effort. When you have I'm going to put it this way, when you have the audacity to tell somebody, just stay positive when they're trying to explain and say how they feel, I'm going to be point blank. When somebody is trying to express what's internally happening to them, their feelings, their thoughts, when you tell them, stay positive, you're pretty much indirectly telling them, oh, shut up. Your feelings, no. Don't think like that. That's not valid. That's pretty much what it is. You're pretty much invalidating somebody else's thoughts, their feelings, their viewpoint, and how they stand right now, and you're telling them it's a charade and it's not real, and they just have to completely ignore how they feel and the thoughts that they're thinking and just completely disregard it. When you disregard something, when you resist it, it persists you. Meaning, if you resist, hello, Eric. I'm just gonna go with it like that. When you resist a feeling, a thought, or resist trying to acknowledge something that's like your feelings or your viewpoint, your standing, if you refuse to acknowledge it, it persists you and it gets larger and much more difficult to deal with. And that's how you can actually see somebody getting depression, even psychosis, mental disorders, psychological disorders, emotional disorders, bipolar disorder. Because what you're doing is you're completely tuning out how something is affecting you. Thus, it actually becomes like a giant snowball and gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And there are some things that really you cannot be positive about. Okay, Eric. Okay. Now that I know, okay, good. Thanks for the clarity. When you refuse to face your feelings and your thoughts and your standpoint, you're really taking a double-edged sword to yourself. One, you're not facing the truth on how you feel. Two, you're crippling yourself. Like, say for an example, here's a good one. A while, like years ago, there was a twat head that was actually causing unnecessary stress between me and my significant other. And a part of me wanted to really just say how I felt to the other person's face, but because my significant other didn't want to have any conflict happening with him around, I kept my mouth shut, which was a big mistake. Because up until the falling out and pushing that other person away, I had these recurring thoughts and these feelings that were being repressed, kept quiet, pretty much quote unquote turning the other cheek. But internally, I'm thinking, I hate this person. This person is causing unnecessary stress between me and him, just complete BS, and is now actually causing harm to my other significant other instead of standing up. So, because of that choice of keeping quiet and being the more mature one, instead of speaking how I felt and trying to drive him away, damage was done to both of us. But now, if I didn't hold myself back, and just snapped it right then and there, things could have been different. But because of that, there was damage to both me and my significant other because of it. When something bothers you, don't restrict yourself. Don't hold yourself back. Don't think that, well, do harm unto none. Well, the thing is, if something or someone is posing a threat to you, even if it's something like saying an insult to you, they're on the aggressive. And if something is swinging at you, why are you just going to let it just hit you? If someone is being relentless with it, I would kind of hope and I would pray that you would actually take a stand for yourself and not be so restrictive of your right of existing. Because a threat to your existence and well being and standing is a threat. And what do you usually do with a threat when it's coming at you? Either you get out of the way or neutralize it. And by neutralize it, I don't mean like take a gun at another and shoot it in the head. Not that extreme. But in other circumstances, possibly, but still. You don't stand there and let the thing that's posing a threat to your well being hit you. Because the thing that I tell people all the time, and I will keep saying this until I kick a bucket and I stop moving. In this life, you come first. Nothing and nobody else. If you're not well, doesn't matter who, what, where, nothing. Until you stand up on your own 2 feet and you can fend for yourself, nothing and no one else around, nothing around matters until you stand up on your own and you're well. If you're not well and you can't fend for yourself, nothing else matters until you can. Nothing. Because the thing is, when you give yourself all of yourself when you're down, you can't stand up. You can't fend for yourself. You're helpless. So you have to come first. Nothing else around you. When you're standing on your own 2 feet and you're fending for yourself, you can do whatever you deem fit afterwards. But until you stand on your own 2 feet, from, like, say, for example, if you're afflicted with a mental disorder or psychological disorder or some mental challenge, it doesn't matter how long it takes or whatever has to be done. You have to come first to figure out, how do I get my way of thinking and mentality and keeping my emotional feelings in check, that it doesn't possess and blind me and keeps me down. Until that happens, nothing around you matters until that gets taken care of. Nothing else matters. Because if you give it to something else outside of you first, you're slowly draining the life of yourself. That's not how you live. You don't live by sacrificing your energy, what you have, for something else. When you are able to sustain yourself and stand on your own 2 feet and live, then you can give as much as you want. You can do as you deem fit because you're able to live, function. When you can't, don't even think of it as an option, because you're going to only end up crippling yourself and making things worse and harder for yourself, and everything build up more and more and more. Another toxic positivity thing that can occur. You can actually be really invalidating somebody else's past and what they've gone through. And the thing is, I hate to break it to you, nobody has the right to invalidate what another person has gone through and suffered with and have endured. Unless if you actually were there, which most of the time people have not been, you kind of don't have the right to tell somebody, no, don't think like that. You shouldn't be thinking like that. Well, the thing is that that person who's just trying and give them the false narrative of like being, oh, you don't think like that, just stay positive and stuff like that. You shouldn't be thinking like that. Well, here's the problem. So this person shouldn't be thinking like that, huh? Hello, Miriam. So if this individual shouldn't be thinking and feeling like that, question then. Who are you to say how they should feel and think if you're not them? But that's none of my business. I mean, it's their thoughts, their feelings, their experience, and what they've gone through. So don't you think they have the full right to have their thoughts and feelings about the whole thing that they've gone through? Instead of you trying to tell them how to feel and think? You don't have that right. Mm-mm. But that's none of my business. What do I know? I mean, I'm not a psychologist, but I don't know. When somebody, oh, here's another one. This one's probably the biggest one. When you actually use the over love and light and actually pushing it on other people when they're a victim of abuse, neglect, or any kind of trauma that's been ongoing and still is, look on the bright side of it. How can you look on the bright side of, like, for an example, say if there's a woman and she's being physically assaulted, mentally abused, emotionally abused, and is being violated, you tell her, "Oh, just think of the positives of it." The positives. How can you think of the positives of being violated, assaulted, attacked, mentally and emotionally abused, and just completely violated? There's nothing positive about that. Well, there's a place to live. No. Here's another thing to break the bank and break that stupidity. You can have everything you want on the physical plane, but internally, mentally, and emotionally, if it's destroyed and distraught and just in the worst state, it doesn't matter what surrounds you. You're always going to feel that state. Because you can have literally near next to nothing, but be so peaceful within that it doesn't matter what happens around you. But now, if there's somebody that's doing that to that innocent woman, and they're pretty much invalidating their stupidity and telling her it's not as bad as it could be. Well, I hate to even put it this way, but put yourself now into her shoes and then switch the places. And then try and say the same thing. Well, look on the bright side. You know, now you know how she feels, but hey, look at the positives of it. You're learning how now she feels. You're understanding the consequence of your actions. And that's something too. I'm glad you brought up, Miriam. When you're a part of a religious belief and you have a faith practice, the number one thing it must do, the core of it all, it should expand your horizons and bring you closer to divinity and lead you on the path to a spiritual ascension, ashram, or moksha, or liberation from this world. It should empower and inspire you, not be weaponized, and most definitely not used to shame, cripple, or bring harm to another individual, especially when it actually has a woman being seen and told that she's as useful as or even lower than a dog. If that's not a religious faith, that's actually sickening. How can you tell a woman, any woman for that matter, you're pretty much as lower than a dog? How can I can't even think. I can't even logically my brain just refuses to even take it into itself because that's a human being. In fact, a woman, like I keep going on about, is the one that brings life into the world, is the one that actually, without woman, man is never going to find divinity. Without woman, man is just lost. But again, now to also take a side note, when I say man needs other, oh, oh, I got a good one, Miriam. Just wait. With that saying, man needs other or man needs woman in order to find divinity and God and moksha. It also means one needs other, because when one has other, divinity forms from the unionship. That's the Trinity. But specifically this. Now, here's one that's really agitating. And this actually happened, I believe, last month. When you have a woman run away from a husband figure because of abuse, neglect, and being mistreated, when she returns and then gets beheaded, and the husband who beheaded her parades around with her head and flaunts it in front of the whole town, and using a religious belief to justify it. Well, here's the thing. Number one, religion is a higher form of philosophy and it's a higher intelligence. I believe so, yeah. Faith and philosophy and religious standing, that's a higher form of intelligence. What happened there? That's barbaric. That's uncivilized. In fact, that has no intelligence in it. That's just psychologically ill to the most sickest part of the human consciousness and awareness. That's the darkest part of it. And no, that's no. That's no. And usually, one of the main things that is said to a woman who's being abused and in that environment is that, well, they're not really like that. Oh, they don't mean it. Or they're just playing. Well, either way, me personally, as long as the faith, as long as the faith and the belief system and the practice does not bring any risk or harm to the individual who believes in it or practices it, I'm fine with it. But when something becomes out of line and tyrannical to the point where innocent civilians or even women and children are being put in a situation where they could be killed or just treated like pawns, don't mind me. Yeah, spit. That's just sickening. And it's really, to be honest, it's inexcusable. And it doesn't matter what holy book says what. You have the audacity to treat a human being like an object or a pawn or a punching bag. I'm sorry, I don't have to. This says Striker. Is there and like the surrounding passages? Does it say because of what reason? Because I'm actually curious because I actually want to know, so that way I can interpret it myself. Because the thing is, I I can't. I just think because I mean I'm thinking, why would you hit your wife? I'm sorry. I did not mean to laugh at that in a way that's like mocking it, but just like, wow, really? You admonish. Let me see. Before I make a judgment call on that, I want to know what that word means before I say anything. Because the thing is, if a woman says no, no means no. Yeah, but I mean, I'm laughing at it because it's like, really? If she says no to your advance, you can hit her? Really? No wonder you guys are mainly single over there. No wonder. And I mean, wow. I guess I don't even know how to respond to that. It's just like, really? You can't take no for an answer? Wow. That's sad. What is that word? Admonish. Warn or reprehend someone firmly. You warn her and then strike her. You reprimand someone firmly and strike her if she persists. Is there anything else surrounding it too? Like any other fine details? Because if she refuses to sleep with, okay. Now the way that I catch it's just like, okay, sleep with? Okay. She's sleeping next to you, like fast asleep. Like snoozing, asleep. You're asleep too. She's sleeping with you. She's next to you, asleep. That counts. Good enough. Deal with it. That doesn't. Well, it says sleep, so she's fast asleep next to you. You can't hit you. There it is. She's asleep, sleeping with you, not sexually, sticking it to her. And no, sleeping is sleeping, not suggestively laying with. If you want to be technical. Men are in charge of women by right of what Allah has given over the other. Allah has given one over the other. Men are okay. Men are in charge of women by right, what Allah has given one over the other, and given one over the other. So now the thing is, by right, what Allah has given one over the other. Well, the thing is, one over the other. So what's the one and then what's the other? I mean, this is like how when I analyze some kind of text like this, I really dive deep and I nitpick the living heck out of it. Given one, what Allah has given one over the other and what they spend for maintenance from their wealth. Allah has given one over the other and what they spend. Okay, well, spend time from their wealth. Okay, well, time, patience. Let's see, what's another one? Mental health, mental well-being, emotional health. They're being taxed. Close enough. From their okay. So righteous women are devoutly obedient, guarding in the husband's absence. Okay, so righteous women are devoutly obedient when the husband is not around. So when the husband's not around, what? They are devoutly obedient, guarding in, guarding, obedient, guarding in the husband's absence. What Allah would have them guard. Now here's another question. Guarding in the absence of what Allah would have them guard. So what if Allah said, defend yourself, defend the kids, have to defend themselves? Possibly. Because I'm just going with what this says. If Allah said to guard like the children themselves, assets, well, the woman, has to do that. But because looking at it, guarding in the husband's absence, what Allah would have him guard. So that one's kind of and that's another thing too. Isn't isn't there something about there that says about adultery too? But 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 those wives from whom you like but those wives from whom you fear arrogance. Whom you fear arrogance. So those who you are intimidated by their self well, because arrogance, both men and women, does it specify? Oh, and actually, Miriam, I think you might appreciate this one. This little fancy little thing that I even come up with. Okay, right. I think you might appreciate this one. So, you know the part where it says like when a man passes away, then they go to heaven, they get to have how many virgins was it? How many was it again? I can't remember the exact number. 72. Okay, now here's the thing. Here comes the funny part. So 72 virgins, huh? Okay, one question. Which virgins? What kind of virgins are we talking about? We're talking people? Are we talking about oh. So 72 virgins, okay. Question then. What's the virgins? Virgin olive oil trees? Virgin baboons? Oh, probably my favorite one. My favorite one. Or maybe 72 virgin male Tasmanian devils who are on the prowl. They just hit their time, their prime, and they're ready. I don't know. Let's just spin the wheel, the virgin wheel. Let's see what you land. Oh, got the Tasmanian devils. Oh, welcome to heaven. Next. Well, if it doesn't specify, I mean, if what's the actual verse say? If you were able to like bring that one up too, because I mean, I really want to see the verse and just completely be like, really? You have to bribe men? You have to bribe your male followers to follow a belief system like this. You have to bribe them with that. Wow. It does? Huh. Hmm. I wasn't expecting that one. Large large breasted companions with almost translucent skin. Okay. Companions. There's many things that you can consider a companion. A dog. Man's best friend's a companion. Or even something that accompanies you. It could literally be anything. Or even, well, you know what else is another. Well, actually, this one's going to be a little bit vulgar, but still. Companion, huh? What's another thing that gives you companionship and won't leave you alone? Flies. That accompanies you. That just likes to bug you. So imagine that. 72. Yeah, but I mean, I can definitely also point this out too. Are you familiar with at all the Vedas and Shukracharya? Are you familiar with any of that? Because I want because if you're not familiar, then I'll explain it. Because I mean, okay, good. Because the thing is, Shukracharya is Venus, and Venus has the dominion over women. That's one of the significations of Shukra. Yeah, I'll explain it. So the thing is, Shukracharya is also the guru to the people, like human beings, Asuras, or demons, for God forbid, for the technical real term, but still. Shukra is a guru that teaches people how to enjoy life. Because the thing is, when you have all your experiences and you learn and you experience every desire you want. Hello, Fiona. When you experience every desire that you want to its fullest extent, you'll then have no need to experience anything else in the world. Thus, you'll then ask Suracharya, because you can even ask him for any kind of wish being bestowed. I want to experience divinity. That's what I want. And the way the Shukra believes is that whenever an Ashura or person comes to him, if they want something, he gives it to them. Not just to be handing out, but because he understands when you experience a desire or an experience, once you're done with it, you're finished with it. Then you move on to the next one. And once you get through all your desires, you'll then have a cut clear path towards divinity, and you will not be distracted. Completely clear. But and then the other side, Jupiter Guru, Barispati, he is like putting the person through boot camp. But now when you go that route, you can still make it, but you have to suffer for it, and then you also have the desires pulling you back too. But Shukra actually gets you out of this plane and out of this earth. And Shukra even that's the thing though. If you experience every desire, you'll only have one left. And this one desire cannot be experienced on earth to its fullest extent. And that's actually pursuing and reuniting with divinity. You have to leave this plane for that one. And Shukra can actually help guide you to that. It's a long process, but Shukra will guide you to that. I mean, look at Yogananda. Yogananda is actually probably the best example of how taking somebody and Shukra guiding them to divinity. Yes, precisely. Mm-hmm. You can call it Source, you can call it Lord Vishnu, or any of the highest divinity that you can think of. But now, here's the thing though. If there is a man and he has a Venus placement that is completely tarnished, I hate to tell him this, but you're never going to get to divinity. If Venus is badly damaged and if you keep knocking it down, the best, actually, I don't want to say the best, the number one worst way of making your Venus get weaker and struggle and suffer is if you do any kind of atrocity to a woman. Any atrocity makes the Venus weaker. And also, Venus can make the dead come back to life. Like have somebody's legacy live on and be remembered. And not even that. Venus is also the spouse figure. Yes, suppressing women, that is afflicting the Venus. And every person on this planet, everything has a Venus placement. But the thing is, with man, he has to be very careful. Very careful. Because, like, for example, the guy that beheaded. It is. It is actually Miriam. How? Let's just say when there's enough heat, the body stands up and walks. That's all I'm saying. But now here's the thing. But now the thing is, for a woman, that can also be an indication for like husband figure, or your Atmakarika or Yokarika, it can represent you. But it's also, oh yeah, the guy that beheaded the woman, his Venus is completely trashed. There's like no way. There's like, oh gosh, I can just now play out of my. Oh, why did you do that? You're gonna have some bad karma next life, dude. That's not gonna be good. Because such an atrocity like that can actually get him the curse of Venus for next life. Ironically, though, the term hell, it's actually the underworld, which is here. Yes, precisely. And one of these of Shukra is actually let them enjoy. So what if it's not like sacred and like of the higher plane? So what? Are they enjoying life? So what? What's the big deal? Are they hurting each other? No. Are they just enjoying themselves, even being a little bit silly and fun? What's the problem? Oh, they're getting intoxicated? Well, intoxication doesn't mean that they're being killed and they're not killing each other. In fact, Venus also has dominion over being intoxicated. Now, intoxication is when you take something outside of you inward and then your perspective changes. So, when you consume alcohol, even smoke, you're using Rahu, that's Rahu, to afflict you. But the feeling that you feel of being intoxicated, like drunk, that's Venus. Because you're actually being intoxicated and now you're in a feeling that you naturally cannot feel yourself. And in addition, without any kind of outside stimuli, when divinity indicates you, in a sec, you'll actually start crying. When you actually, and actually, Miriam, that's actually probably one of the best ways to use astrology, to be honest. It is. Because when you're able to see, like for an example, a moon in Jeshta, my it's the most difficult places to have. It's difficult. And there are some things that he won't say, but I mean I know the best I can. And I mean I can just tell just by seeing a picture of him, talk or anything like that. Oh man, I know he's having a lot and just deep. But the thing is, understand that this is a life instead of whatever kind of garnish and tarnish is on it. And actually, another thing too, my connection's unstable. What do you mean my connection's unstable? That's BS. Hold on. I don't know why my... Okay, I don't know what just happened. I don't know if I went crazy, whoop-de-woo. But anyway, get that out of the way. So. Oh, well. Sometimes my internet's okay, sometimes it's meh. Sometimes I don't know. I just hopefully just do the best that I can with this bloody, horrible internet. But anyway, as I was saying, believe it or not, the term deva, which is also associated with the word divine, or believe it or not, deva is not actually like a celestial being from the Hindu perspective. A deva, believe it or not, is actually a figure that got to that deva title, and deva translates to one who has mastered or has an excel in a certain aspect of life. So, for an example, Lord Shiva, the deva of destruction. Lord Ganesh, the lord of success, removal of obstacles, but also the deva of administering challenges and obstacles. Goddess Kali, the deva, I don't know what you would call the goddess version of that, the devas. I'm just taking a guess here. Of destruction. Another one, let's see. Lord Yama, the deva of death, and actually guiding the soul to the Pitris, the ancestors. But now, with that in mind, the term deva can actually potentially represent somebody that's on Earth right now. It can. However, it has to be taken into account that the deva from Hindu mythology has potential, and it may also associate with other beliefs around the world for their figures. For an example, probably the best example would be over in Greek mythology. We'll take one for example. Queen Hera, a deva over women, Olympus, and the home. The Queen of Olympus, who has mastered the aspect of life that pertains to women, running the household, upholding the household, as well as motherhood. And we can go to a different mythology plane. Sekhmet, the goddess of the desert, war, bloodshed, as well as restoration. Sekhmet, the Egyptian deva of destruction, the desert, resurrection, and bloodshed, and healing. Hel, the Norse goddess of the underworld. Hi, Maddie. So Hel, the deva, the one who excels in undertaking the underworld, who the deva who masters caretaking to the passed on. Makes sense. And even you can even also say the same for Lilith. Thanks, Maddie. Thank you for that $1. And I'll let you ask one question if you'd like for that. For heck, you could even also say Lilith, but the thing with Lilith though, Lilith is a primordial. Primordials are not the same as like a deva. Shiva is also a primordial. But the thing is, like the classification is completely different. Zeus is a deva. Nyx or Nox is a primordial. Zeus is not a primordial. So when it comes to that, they actually may be figures that are far more advanced and cannot be changed, because if they changed, something may cause existence how it naturally is to flop and change. For example, if something was to happen to Nyx or Nox, Night Mother, there would be no night. And that's something that cannot be tampered with, because without night, there would be no sleep. And Yama's sister Yami would be crying non-stop. Yes. Just general, just like the general standing. Was that what you meant? But to pretty much kind of like end the whole topic of the love and light thing, being like overly killed with it. Number one, of course, you should have some way of inspiring others and bringing, at least from one of my teacher figures. I even call him guru myself. He says, "Bring light to dark places," but now symbolically, bringing light to dark places, meaning bring awareness, bring the sense of being able to see, bring warmth, bring comfort to those who are in the dark, alone, aren't able to tell what's going on, blind, and can't see, and they're not able to comprehend. Bring that awareness to them. Not overkill and say to somebody who's suffering, just stay positive. No, no, no. You shouldn't think that you're in a bad situation. People have it much worse. That's actually using it in a toxic way. And when you invalidate someone like that, you're not using love and light. You're actually using the extreme part of light where it becomes baneful and toxic. Because when you have an over administration of something like for an example, medicine's the best thing. The difference between medicine and poison is the dosage. You can give just a right amount of medicine to cure an ailment, but you can give the wrong amount and over amount of it and you can kill someone. The same thing applies with having the idea of a light standpoint and a darker standpoint. And in fact, the darker standpoint actually, even though it may be stereotypically seen as more darker and more uncomfortable, it's the one that's the most accepting. It's the most accepting between the two. Because in the dark, everything yields from the dark. Believe it or not. Everything yields from it. Just keep that in mind. So for, what the heck? Looks like I'm going to have that just stay there. So for Maddie, for general, okay. I'm going to be using the manga tarot. Give me a general. So I guess we'll just do the elemental cross. Current standing then. Right in the center, we have the Eight of Blades. This depiction is usually the standard Rider-Waite Smith, and she's the current standing. You may be in a position where you feel like you're not able to see or move your arms or be able to properly move or make a choice on the physical, but you're mentally at peace. You're at ease. You're calm. And you're actually taking a moment to reflect and ponder about the situation you're in and how the situations behind you got you to this position. And you're really focusing heavily on your intuitive side to be able to figure out what to do next. One of the cards flew out of the deck. For the physical, like your health, well-being, standing, practical everyday living, also financial standing, wealth, and security. We have he with a big stick and ready to swing, the King of Wands. So when it comes to your health, you actually are very healthy. You're very vibrant. When it comes to financial standings, you may be having a lot of inspiration to actually take initiative to start something to generate more income. You actually may be in a position where you might actually lead other people to a more healthier lifestyle. Or in your profession, you actually might be the one that's in command, and now you are being tasked to lead the charge regarding a project or a business. When it comes to your saving, definitely this is the time to actually be inspiring to invest in yielding investments and taking full control of them and being really wise on how you exert your finances. And also, if you happen to have a pet, make sure that pet you spend a lot of time with before you make your decisions, because you pretty much will get input from them, like a thought will come in your head for the best decision, the best course of action. When it comes to interacting with other people, communications, learning a new subject, schooling, well, again, being the head of a project, yep, school project, that counts too. But now here's the thing, though. The thing with an animal passing away, you just have to simply think about them, and then they're right there. And the cat is actually probably one of the best advisors to help you take initiative with, because they're always a hunter. They are a hunting type of animal. When it comes to the intelligence, learning a new subject, communicating with other people, and even also research and ideas, we have the Page of Pentacles. Oh, so far we have the core cards all in their natural element. Wow. So, Page of Pentacles in the air area. When it comes to learning a new subject, you actually have the financial standing and the actual practical means to actually really go towards a path you want to invest in and learn. You may also be getting a message, or you may be wanting to actually learn how to effectively communicate with other people more. You may also get a token of appreciation for your willingness to take on and learn a new skill or learn something that's vital on the physical plane, like financial awareness, being able to understand how to do budgeting, understanding how to do an insurance payment, and understanding on how to budget, things like that. And you actually may be getting a head start to potentially pick up a certain trade that you have been wanting for and you have the means to afford it. Now for the obstacle or motivating force. We have the Empress. Obstacle. Make sure you're being treated as a queen. If you're in a position where you're not being taken seriously, or if you're not being seen as a figure that needs to be respected, remember, flaunt the crown. If they don't like it, well, tell them, boo-hoo, sit. You're the queen, and I don't remember hearing anybody telling the queen no. That didn't keep their head afterwards. And the motivating force is that you have the support from the earth backing you up. And you have a lot of potential to bring into your experience in your life something that is going to be evergreen fruitful, if that makes sense. Like it'll always keep giving, like an investment. Now for the emotional and the spiritual part, the wet side. That sounds so weird. For the emotional sector, we have the goodies. The emotional sector. The Queen of Twigs. Well, 2 queens. And all of these are figures. Oh, by the way. You have the king and the queen there. So on the practical side, something in the practical world and the leadership will also help you spiritually. And because since the queen is in the position where it's wet and the queen is an actually water focused card as the foundation, emotionally being able to pick other people up and also yourself up will actually get you a lot more in tune with your spiritual side. But when it comes to a significant like a love interest, by the way, there is a oh look, it's a cat. A black cat at that. So definitely connecting with your passed away cat will also help the spiritual side and also the emotional side. And even also may give you some love advice, that give you some inputs in your thoughts to actually better your emotional self. And also, since Rahu represents the cat, consider incorporating more of the Rahu, like Rahu related things. And I'll pull one more for your best course of action to do next. Well, I'm only doing this one because I also had to get offline for a second because I got to take a phone call and I got to make one real quick. So the suggested course of action: Knight of Twigs. We have the 3 core cards with sticks here. The only one that's missing is the kid. So your course of action: pick up the big stick and start flinging it all over the place. Not like that. Don't be nasty. But pretty much take your willpower and flaunt it all over the place. Oh, no, 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 no. You have the king and the queen and the knight. The three that handle the sticks. Yep, you're the. Well, I have the queen of wands there, and then there's the king of wands and the knight of wands. So most definitely, let your willpower go out. Let it fly. Let's see here. If you were to, let's see, I'll pull one final one. If you were to actually let your willpower and your inspiration and your zest, like your inner flame, to come out, you'd get. Oh, look, it's Chris Farley, the devil. And if you notice this depiction, you see the two figures actually locking hands and making a heart. Badoom, there it is. And now some people be like, well, it's the devil. That means it's a toxic relationship. Ugh. Let me just do this to it real quick. Let me just do that to it real quick. When you have two figures come together, you have divinity form in the center. And the devil actually shows a connection bettering yourself. Because the idea with the Satanism pathway and belief system is to better thyself. So the relationship that'll come about when you are letting yourself fling the sticks around, the connection will better yourself. It'll better thyself, which is supposed to be one of the big things about a connection. You should be with someone that also makes you gain, not just them. So most definitely yes. No, it's not going to be toxic. It'll only be toxic if you allow it to be toxic. But when you understand that you have to put yourself first in the connection, you'll be surprised to see how much fun it's going to be. But anyway, I have to make a call now, and if I have enough time, I'll come back afterwards. But I have a lot on my plate ahead, so I'll talk to you guys later on then.